So, a little bit of context. Sean Diaz is one of two main characters in Life is Strange 2, and the one you will be playing in order to interact with the story. His decisions throughout the game will determine the fate of himself, his brother, and his best friend. However, I feel the journey he went through in this game was unnecessary and an example of someone who was failed by society, more specifically the legal system. The event that triggers the rest of the story is that Sean's younger brother gets into an argument with their racist neighbor, Brett Foster, who somehow got close enough to Daniel that his fake blood concoction spills on his shirt. Sean catches wind of this, confronts Brett, and gets into a fight that causes Brett to trip over himself and knock himself out from a combination of the fall and a rock hitting his back. A cop sees this by the name of Kendrick Matthews, who pulls a gun on a teenager and a 9-year-old child. This prompts their father, Esteban, to come out of their garage and see what is going on. Kendrick panics and shoots and kills their father right in front of his sons. The emotional toll causes Daniel's powers to manifest in the worst way possible, and the resulting knockback from the shockwave kills the cop. Sean, also in a panic and not in his right state of mind, takes off with Daniel and goes on a run, determined to start a new life in Mexico where they have additional property. The first failure was in the way the car responded to the situation. Instead of detaining Daniel and Sean and then getting Brett some medical attention, he pulled a gun on them. A cop shouldn't be pulling guns on teenagers and kids as a first response. All it did was escalate the situation further. While Kendrick did check on Brett's condition, his next step should have been to call in emergency health services, and then detain Daniel and Sean to question them and start gathering facts. It's revealed that Kendrick had only been a cop for 6 months, and it is suggested that he had an assigned partner, but said partner was out. Instead of assigning him a new partner to go on patrol with, they sent him out alone where his inexperience destroyed the lives of a single family and contributing to his death as a result. He shouldn't have been sent alone to the police the area, but when I could glance, a cop could be considered a rookie for up to a year. If his partner was not available, then Kendrick should have been made to stay at the sheriff's office or the police station, where he could have continued to receive mentoring by more experienced officers. Looking at the police budget for Seattle in 2016, they saw an increase from $293 million to $299 million, with patrol operations going from $1.6 million to over $3 million. However, if we look at the budget for 2017, these same areas go up to $329 million and $9 million respectively. It's possible that in this game's universe that Kendrick's death and the Diaz being on the run was used as an excuse to increase the police budget, meaning that Sean and Daniel's tragedy was used by those set against them to obtain support and more funding. Looking at the funding again, 2 park ranger positions were eliminated, giving us a real-world context as to why the park they visited in episode 1 was unmanned. The next is the lack of observing the legal rights of Sean and Daniel. It is revealed that they are American citizens being born on American soil and being born to an American mother. That's right, Sean and Daniel are mixed race, half Mexican, half Irish American. This means they are and should have been afforded all the rights every American enjoys via the Constitution and the laws in place for such. Throughout the story, people representing the legal system that Sean encounters are trying to arrest him and put him in jail. Never once are we given any indication that Sean or Daniel have been given any sort of legal counseling by anyone not on the prosecution side, and that Daniel is being left off on a technicality of being too young to prosecute. The dumb logic is that because Sean fled the scene, he is being treated as being guilty when we are supposed to have an innocent until proven guilty system. Part of the problem is that no one is putting themselves in Sean's shoes. He is a typical 16-year-old teenager who just went through a traumatic event. While objectively it would have been wise for Sean to stay and seek legal counsel, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that someone who just saw their father get shot because of a dispute over a wet shirt between neighbors would flee the scene. People tend to have a fight or flight response to high-stress events, and his was flight. I don't expect a 16-year-old teenager to understand the ins and outs of the legal system, especially when they have been keeping out of trouble beforehand. I took a legal course in high school, and while we went over court cases and questions about innocence versus guilty, we weren't taught about how to handle ourselves if we found ourselves foul of the law. At some point in the story, Sean is arrested, but we don't see his Miranda rights being read, a violation again of his constitutional rights. He is then interrogated or questioned by the same officer without legal counsel being present. It's no wonder he wants out of the country, as everyone he interacts with from our legal system is trying to lock him up and have. Another problem is what they think Sean did to the cop. Kendra the cop was the only person in this conflict with a weapon and certainly the only one with a gun. That rules out death by firearm. A body autopsy should reveal that Kendrick died from blunt force trauma. One look at Sean doesn't say he has the power to overpower and give a killing blow to a police officer who should have been in some kind of physical shape from his officer training. Sean is a top athlete in his school, yes, but as a track star. His specialty is being fast, not punching or kicking, and if my understanding of track and field sports is correct, such athletes tend to have a lot of stamina as their training in sport would give them a strong cardiovascular system. We see this in the form of Sean being able to track for long periods of time over long distances throughout the story. And yes, there are examples online of track athletes being buff and all that jazz, but from the shirtless scenes we do get of Sean, he is very skinny. I doubt he is hitting the weights, and there is no indication he took up any martial arts training either. Prior to this incident, it appears Sean stayed out of trouble, as he is not mentioned to have gotten into trouble beforehand either with the legal system. And yet, despite all this, the best ending has him spending 15 years in jail. A good lawyer should have been able to get the charges dropped or have him found not guilty. I do not think Sean was found guilty of killing a cop, however. First-degree murder in Washington State is life in prison with no chance of parole or release, and we see Sean released after 15 years. Then because Sean was able to avoid law enforcement for almost a year, the system saw this as an embarrassment and wanted to make an example out of Sean. Off the top of my head, he could have been facing multiple counts of obstruction of justice, attempting to elude a police officer, failure to obey officer, and any laws or legal codes that cover him crossing state lines while being pursued by law enforcement. The fact that Daniel's technicality was mentioned hints that they would have prosecuted him as well. I think that if Sean was offered legal help and counsel up to the hospital escape, a lot of headaches and bruised egos could have been avoided. Because of Daniel's tear through the Arizona police station that saw many officers hurt, I can see Sean getting charged with multiple assaults of police officer, escape and rescue, and given that Daniel damaged the border wall in order to cross over, Sean could have been charged with trying to illegally cross the border, as well as a charge related to his damage. Again, if Sean was offered legal help and was given a defense attorney at the hospital, or someone within the camp tried to obtain such help for the brothers, then I think all of that would have been avoided.